When we're reading the Bible, we're reading it poetically and musically. And this can be a challenge for those of us who hold to a very strong view of the authority, reliability, and truth of Scripture. We think that because the Bible is true, every single one of our readings of it must be absolutely sure. And yet the Bible is poetic in many respects, and our readings of it have a sort of poetic character to them. And poetic readings are often readings that are not absolutely 100% sure. They can come with different degrees of strength or certainty. So when we're reading a text, we're always alert to the possibility that we might actually be incorrect. We're always aware of how much the weight of a particular reading is distributed among the details of the text. And so when we're paying attention to allusions, we're aware of the possibility that the allusion might not be there. Maybe there's a 90% possibility that it is present in the text, or maybe only 50-50. But yet we're always, in our minds, having a clear sense of how much weight to put upon this. I often compare this to the way that a tree can have different branches and parts of it that bear different degrees of weight. The trunk of the tree bears a great deal of weight, and the central part of the text is sure and certain. As we read the witness to Christ in Scripture, there should be no doubt of its witness to Christ. As God come in human flesh, there should be no doubt about that. That's not based upon speculative, symbolic connections, nor upon some sort of chiastic structure that we have discerned within the text, or seem to have discerned. Nor is it based upon merely some typological speculation. This is clear and present throughout the text, and it's something that we can put all of our weight upon. And yet there are going out from that trunk many stronger branches that bear a different degree of weight. They will not bear the full weight of the tree, but yet they will bear considerable weight. Things like, let's say, the Exodus pattern in Scripture, which recurs on many occasions. And so we can see that pattern as it recurs, becoming stronger through those repetitions. As we hear it again and again in different iterations, in different degrees, sometimes all of the elements present, sometimes some present, others absent. As we see that particular pattern becomes more certain to us. And we can put a lot of weight upon that. And yet there are thinner branches, there are skinny branches as we go out, and maybe even some twigs and leaves further out. Those are not things that we're going to put our full weight upon. We recognize that if we were climbing that tree, we would not go out to the full length of those skinny branches and expect it to bear our weight. We're not resting important doctrines of the Christian faith upon speculative typological or symbolic connections. And yet, we will find at every step that a faithful use of these sorts of symbolic and typological readings will support and fill out those readings that we see in the central trunk. That central trunk is elaborated as it develops into a fuller tree with those twigs, with those branches, with those leaves. And so we're paying attention to the details, but also aware of how much weight those details can and may not bear on certain occasions. That control is again the control of the letter of the text. That control of the letter is a control that ensures that the immediate surface reading of the text is not rejected for the sake of some speculative esoteric reading that goes against it. Our readings of the details of the text that suggest symbolic or typological connections, figural associations, those readings are readings that fill out and support and elaborate and strengthen the readings of the text that any person within the pew could arrive at. And ideally, what we're going to be doing as we teach these is enable people to see them for themselves. If people are depending upon us to recognize these patterns, if they cannot replicate and do these same things at home, then something is wrong. What they've been taught is merely some system that we have devised and imposed upon the text, not something that is attentive and responsive to the text itself. And that is one of the things that serves as a further demonstration and proof of good reading. Do other people independently arrive at these same connections? And in Theopolis, one of the things that has been a great source of encouragement to me is how often people arrive at the same sorts of readings and reject other readings that seem speculative. There is a consistency that arises from the testimony of two or more witnesses. And the multiplicity of witnesses to various readings can be a great support. Now, these multiplicity of witnesses are not necessarily exclusive to faithful Christians. Often we'll find in more literary readings of the text that people who are attentive to the details of the literary features of the text will see connections that we're seeing theologically and typologically and figurally. If you're reading many of the works on the literary reading of Scripture, you will find that they're seeing type scenes and typological patterns and literary structures that we see as we try and read the Scripture through our new eyes. Likewise, if you're reading many Jewish commentators upon the Old Testament, again and again they're noticing these sorts of typological and other details. They're seeing the same sorts of things in different ways and to different degrees, and yet their confirmatory witness, even as those who are not Christians, serves to strengthen what we are seeing, to give a supporting supporting evidence to the strength of those readings. When we're reading Scripture, we're also alert to the orthodoxy of the church. If we're reading the text and we're arriving at unorthodox readings and theologies and interpretations, something has gone wrong. We need to go back, retrace our steps. We're reading with other people. We're reading with the tradition. We're reading with the principles of orthodoxy. We're reading in company with others. One of the ways that this can be seen is in the regular podcasts that we have in Theopolis. Within those podcasts, we're reading a text together. And as we read together, we're pushing back against other people's readings. We're testing readings. We're considering how much we should weight certain readings. Is that a strong reading? Is it a weak and more speculative reading? Is it a possibility that we're holding open and not sure about? Or is it something that seems really certain and sure? In all of these ways, there are controls. There are different ways that we are testing things. And a difference between a speculative reading that we're still holding open for examination and a reading that is certain is an important one that we recognize. The fact that we have not closed off that reading or rejected it does not mean that we hold it with the same degree of strength or certainty as the other.